They were laughing at her, every single one of them. Alara Vance stood on a platform in London's most exclusive drawing room, her stepfather's hand gripping her arm like she was livestock. The chandelier light felt like a spotlight on her shame. "Come now, gentlemen," Richard Vance called out, grinning. "Surely someone will bid on the girl. She's quiet, obedient, practically invisible." More laughter. Champagne glasses clinked in cruel celebration. Then a voice cut through the noise, deep, calm, final. £5,000. The room went silent. Alara's heart stopped. Want to know what happens next? Stay until the end, hit that like button, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. The thing about being invisible is that you get good at reading rooms. Alara had learned this skill young, back when her mother was still alive and their house was still theirs. Before Richard Vance married her mother for money and position, before her mother died 6 months later under suspicious circumstances no one bothered investigating, before Alara became nothing more than an inconvenient reminder of a dead woman's fortune he couldn't quite access. She stood now in the Ashworth drawing room, surrounded by London's elite, and read the room perfectly. They hated her. Not personally. That would require noticing her. They hated what she represented, new money trying to claw into old circles, a girl without connections or beauty or charm, taking up space at events where she didn't belong. "Stand straighter," Richard hissed in her ear, his breath reeking of brandy. "Try to look worth something." Alara's spine went rigid. Around them, the party continued, a glittering affair celebrating Lord Ashworth's birthday, though it seemed more like a celebration of excess. Women in gowns that cost more than most families earned in a year, men discussing politics and horses with equal disinterest, everyone performing wealth like a rehearsed play. "Richard, darling, what are you doing?" Lady Ashworth approached, her smile sharp as cut glass. "Providing entertainment," Richard said, his grip tightening on Alara's arm. "I've been thinking, my stepdaughter is of marriageable age, prime breeding years, as they say. Thought I'd test the market." Several nearby conversations stopped. Heads turned. "You cannot be serious," someone said. "Why not? It's all in good fun." Richard pulled Alara forward, and she stumbled slightly, catching herself. Her face burned. "What am I bid for this fine specimen of womanhood?" Laughter erupted, not the polite kind, the cruel kind. "Richard, really?" Lady Ashworth looked uncertain, caught between offense and amusement. "Come now, surely someone wants a wife who knows her place. She's quiet, biddable, and so forgettable you'll never worry about her causing scandal." Richard was enjoying himself now, feeding off the crowd's reaction. "Do I hear £100? Silence. Smirking silence. Alara's nails bit into her palms. She stared at a point on the far wall, a painting of a hunting scene, dogs tearing into a fox. She felt like that fox, cornered, bleeding. £50? Richard's voice took on a mocking edge. 20? Surely she's worth £20 to someone. "Richard, this is in poor taste," Lord Ashworth said, but he was smiling too. £1, someone called out. "I'll bid £1." The room exploded in laughter. Alara wanted to disappear, wanted to sink through the floor, but she'd learned long ago that wanting changed nothing. So she stood there, spine straight like Richard demanded, and endured. £1, going once? £5,000. The voice came from the back of the room, deep and calm and absolutely certain. The laughter died instantly. Alara's head snapped up. Everyone turned. Adrian Hale, Duke of Thornwood, stood near the doorway. He must have just arrived. His evening coat was still dusted with rain. He was tall, dark-haired, maybe 30. She'd seen him before at these events, always on the periphery, always leaving early. The reclusive Duke everyone whispered about. He was looking directly at her. "I'm sorry?" Richard's smile had frozen on his face. £5,000, Adrian repeated, moving forward through the crowd. People parted for him automatically. "That was the bid, wasn't it?" "Your Grace, this was merely a jest." "Was it?" Adrian stopped a few feet away. His eyes never left Alara's face. They were gray, she noticed. Storm cloud gray. "You offered your stepdaughter for auction. I'm offering £5,000. That seems like a legitimate transaction to me." Richard's face had gone red. "Now, see here. Lord Ashworth, you witnessed the offer, did you not?" Adrian glanced at their host. Ashworth looked deeply uncomfortable. Well, yes, and a gentleman's word is binding in this company. I believe that's what you all pride yourselves on? Adrian's voice remained pleasant, but there was steel underneath. So, £5,000 for Miss Vance. Do we have an agreement, Mr. Vance? The room was silent, absolutely silent. Alara couldn't breathe. She looked at Adrian Hale and found him still watching her, not with pity or mockery, but with something else, something that made her feel seen for the first time in years. This is absurd, Richard sputtered. You won't what? Honor your word in front of London's finest? Adrian raised an eyebrow. That seems unwise. The threat was subtle but clear. Richard Vance might have married into money, but Adrian Hale was born to it. Old title, older money, connections that could destroy a social climber like Richard without effort. Richard's jaw worked. Of course, if your grace is serious, entirely serious, my solicitor will contact you tomorrow with the arrangements. Adrian finally looked away from Alara to Richard. I trust that's acceptable? Yes, of course. Excellent. Adrian turned back to Alara. Miss Vance, would you care to take some air? This room seems rather stifling. It wasn't a question, not really. Alara nodded, not trusting her voice. Adrian offered his arm. She took it with shaking hands. They walked through the silent crowd together. Alara kept her head up, though she wanted to look down, wanted to hide. But something in Adrian's steady presence kept her spine straight. The whispers started before they even reached the door. The terrace was cold and wet from earlier rain. Alara breathed in the damp air, trying to steady herself. I apologize, Adrian said quietly. That was presumptuous of me. Alara laughed. She couldn't help it. The sound came out sharp and slightly hysterical. Presumptuous? You just bought me like a horse. I stopped your stepfather from humiliating you further, Adrian corrected. There's a difference. Is there? She turned to face him. Up close, he was even more imposing, not in a threatening way, but in a way that suggested he took up space and didn't apologize for it. You still paid money for me. That's fairly literal. I paid money to create a contract that will get you out of his house, Adrian said. What you do after that is entirely your choice. Alara stared at him. I don't understand. I'm not interested in owning you, Miss Vance. I'm interested in helping you escape a bad situation. He paused. We've met before. We have? 3 years ago, at the Pemberton Library benefit. You were examining a first edition of Newton's Principia, and I overheard you explaining to Lady Pemberton's daughter why the inverse square law was revolutionary. Alara's breath caught. She remembered that day. Remembered touching the ancient book with reverent hands. Remembered getting excited and talking too much. Remembered catching herself and going quiet again when she realized people were staring. You remember that? You were brilliant, Adrian said simply, and clearly bored out of your mind at yet another society event. I thought about introducing myself then, but you left early. Richard doesn't like me staying long at events, says I'm embarrassing. The words came out flat. He's an idiot. The bluntness of it startled a real laugh from her. You can't just say that. I can. I'm a duke, one of the few advantages of the position. Adrian's mouth quirked. Miss Vance, Alara, if I may, I have a proposition for you. I've had enough propositions for one evening. Not that kind. He was definitely smiling now, just slightly. I need someone intelligent, someone who understands mathematics, logic, engineering principles. I'm working on several projects, civic improvements mostly, infrastructure, boring things that require actual thought rather than just throwing money at problems. And you think I can help with that? I think you could revolutionize it. He met her eyes steadily. I've watched you at these events for 3 years. I've seen how you listen to conversations about water systems and railways and factory conditions. I've seen you biting your tongue when men say idiotic things about urban planning. You have ideas, don't you? Ilara's heart was pounding. Women don't work on projects like that. In my house they do, if they want to. Adrian's voice was careful, like he was offering something fragile. I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm not asking you for anything except your mind. But if you want out of Richard Vance's control, I can make that happen. You can work with me, live in my household as an employee, completely respectable, properly chaperoned, paid for your expertise, or you can take the 5,000 pounds and go anywhere you want. Your choice. Why? The word burst out of her. Why would you do this? Adrian was quiet for a moment. Because 3 years ago, I watched someone brilliant make herself small to survive. And tonight I watched your stepfather try to destroy what little dignity you had left. I have resources. You have skills. It seems like a reasonable exchange. Nothing is ever that simple. No, he agreed. But it is that honest. I need help. You need escape. We can help each other. Alara looked at him, really looked. His face was serious, almost severe, but there was something in his eyes that seemed genuine. Or maybe she was just desperate enough to believe it. I'll need to think about it, she said finally. Of course. My solicitor will contact you tomorrow regardless. The money is yours, whether you accept the position or not. He paused. But I hope you'll consider it. The world has enough decorative women at parties. It needs more women who understand how things actually work. Before Alara could respond, the terrace door opened. There you are. Richard's voice was falsely jovial. Your Grace, I must apologize again for the confusion earlier. No confusion, Adrian said coolly. We had a transaction. My solicitor will finalize the details. Richard's smile tightened. Of course. Alara, come. We should be going. Alara looked at Adrian one more time. He gave her a slight nod, reassuring, somehow. She let Richard pull her away. Well, the carriage ride home was silent for exactly 3 minutes. Then Richard exploded. What did you say to him? He grabbed her wrist, hard enough to bruise. What did you do? Nothing. I didn't. 5,000 pounds. For you. Richard's face was mottled red and white. That pompous bastard made me look like a fool in front of everyone. You made yourself look like a fool, Alara said quietly. The slap came so fast she didn't see it. Her head snapped to the side, cheek burning. You will mind your tongue. Richard's voice was deadly quiet now, which was worse than the yelling. I don't know what game Thornwood is playing, but you will not ruin this for me. Do you understand? Alara nodded, not trusting her voice. That money, that contract, it's leverage. Do you know how many doors will open for me with a connection to the Duke of Thornwood? Richard released her wrist. You'll do exactly as I say. Be pleasant. Be grateful. And when he tires of whatever this is, you'll come back home where you belong. And if I don't want to come back? Richard smiled. It was not a kind smile. Then I'll tell everyone about your mother, about what really happened the night she died, about the laudanum bottle they found, about the questions the magistrate decided not to pursue because I made generous donations to several charitable causes he supported. Alara's blood went cold. That's a lie. Is it? Who will people believe? A respected gentleman like me, or a girl with no connections and questionable morals? Richard leaned back in his seat. Play along, Alara. Be useful for once, or I'll destroy what's left of your mother's reputation and bury you with it. The carriage rolled on through the dark streets. Alara touched her burning cheek and said nothing, but inside something was shifting, something was waking up. For 3 years she'd made herself small, quiet, invisible. She'd survived by disappearing. But tonight, someone had looked at her, really looked, and seen not a burden or a joke or a pawn, but a person, a brilliant person. And maybe, just maybe, that changed everything. But Adrian's solicitor arrived at Richard's townhouse at precisely 10 o'clock the next morning. Alara was summoned to Richard's study, where she found him in a suspiciously good mood. Ah, my dear, he gestured her to a chair. Mr. Pemberton here has brought the contract from His Grace, very generous terms. The solicitor, a thin man with sharp eyes, nodded politely to Alara. Miss Vance, His Grace wishes to ensure you understand all provisions clearly. You are under no obligation to sign. She'll sign, Richard said quickly. With respect, Mr. Vance, the contract requires Miss Vance's consent, not yours. Pemberton's voice was mild but firm. Miss Vance, the terms are as follows. You will reside at Thornwood House as a consultant on civic improvement projects. You will receive a salary of £200 per year room and board provided, with a full household staff and chaperone. The position is indefinite, but may be terminated by either party with 30 days' notice. Us £200. Alara's mind reeled. That was more than most clerks earned. Additionally, Pemberton continued, there is an immediate payment of £5,000 to Mr. Vance as settlement of any claims he might have regarding your residence or guardianship. Upon your signature, all legal authority he holds over you is dissolved. Richard's smile was huge. £5,000 would solve his immediate debts and then some. What's the catch? Alara asked quietly. Pemberton actually smiled. No catch, Miss Vance. His Grace is quite serious about his civic projects. He believes your intellect will be valuable, that's all. Let me see the contract. Richard started to protest, but Pemberton handed it over without hesitation. Alara read every word. She'd taught herself enough legal language over the years to understand contracts, another skill acquired out of necessity when Richard tried to trick her out of her mother's jewelry. It was exactly as Pemberton described, clean, clear. No hidden clauses about marriage or servitude or anything else sinister. There's a provision here about my mother's estate, she said, finding the clause near the end. Yes, His Grace's researchers discovered that your mother's will left certain properties and funds in trust for you to be released on your 21st birthday or marriage. These have been irregularly managed by Mr. Vance. His Grace suggests you might want independent legal representation to review those holdings. Richard's face went pale. Now see here. The provision is optional, Pemberton said smoothly, but available if you wish it. Alara looked at Richard, watched him squirm. He'd been stealing from her mother's memory, for years. I'll sign, she said. Alara, Richard's voice held warning. I'll sign, she repeated, louder, and I'll take His Grace's offer of legal representation regarding my mother's estate. Pemberton produced a pen. Alara signed her name in firm, clear letters. Richard snatched the contract the moment she finished, scanning for his payment terms. Finding them, his expression relaxed slightly. When do I leave? Alara asked. His Grace has sent a carriage. It's waiting outside. Pemberton gathered the documents. You may take whatever personal belongings you wish. His Grace asks that you not feel rushed. Take whatever time you need. I don't need time. Alara stood. Everything that matters to me fits in one trunk. Richard's head snapped up. You can't just leave. I can. You sold me, remember? She met his eyes steadily. You wanted me gone. Congratulations. She walked out before he could respond. Her room was small and cold. She'd lived in it for 6 years, and it had never felt like home. Alara packed quickly, her mother's letters, hidden under a loose floorboard, a few books, her warmest dresses, the jewelry Richard hadn't managed to steal yet. She was tying the trunk closed when Martha, the housemaid, appeared in the doorway. Is it true, miss? You're leaving. Yes, Martha bit her lip. Good. I'm glad, miss. You deserve better than this house. Alara felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you, Martha. He's a bad man, Mr. Vance. I know it's not my place to say, but... Martha glanced over her shoulder, lowering her voice. Your mother didn't kill herself, miss. I was here that night. I heard them arguing, heard him threatening her. Then she fell down the stairs, and suddenly there was laudanum everywhere, and he was calling the magistrate. And I wanted to say something, but I was scared. Martha. Alara grabbed her hands. Did anyone else hear? Cook did. But she's scared too. He said he'd ruin anyone who spoke against him. Alara's mind was racing. Evidence, witness testimony. If she could prove... But no, not yet. She wasn't strong enough yet. Don't say anything, Alara told Martha. Not yet, but keep your ears open. Write down anything you remember about that night. And if anyone asks you questions about it, tell them the truth. Martha nodded, eyes wide. Alara picked up her trunk. It was heavy, but she managed. Downstairs, Richard was in his study with Pemberton, probably already counting his money. Alara walked out the front door without saying goodbye. The carriage was beautiful, black and gold, with the thornwood crest on the door. A footman helped her inside. As they pulled away, Alara looked back at the townhouse one last time. She'd been a prisoner there, a ghost, but ghosts could come back to haunt. And Richard Vance had no idea what he'd just unleashed. Thornwood House sat on the edge of Hyde Park, massive and beautiful in the morning light. Alara had seen it from the outside before. Everyone had. It was one of London's great houses, ancient and imposing. She'd never imagined being inside. The butler, an elderly man named Crawford, greeted her at the door with perfect courtesy. "Miss Vance? Welcome, His Grace is in the library. He asked that you be brought to him immediately upon arrival, if you're not too fatigued." "I'm fine, thank you." Crawford led her through halls lined with paintings and sculptures, up a grand staircase, down another corridor. The library was enormous, 3 stories of books, with a spiral staircase connecting the levels. Adrian stood by a window, reading something. He looked up when she entered. "Miss Vance, I'm glad you came. I signed the contract. So Pemberton informed me. I hope you found the terms acceptable." "Why are you doing this?" The question burst out of her again. "Really, what do you want?" Adrian set down his book. "Come here." He walked to a large table in the center of the room. It was covered in maps and blueprints and scattered papers. "This is London's water system," he said, gesturing to the maps, "or what passes for one. Cholera outbreaks every summer because the Thames is essentially an open sewer, thousands dying of preventable disease. The engineers say the solution is impossible, too expensive, too complex." Alara leaned over the maps. She couldn't help herself. "But it's not impossible," Adrian continued. "It's just difficult. It requires someone to actually think about flow rates and pressure systems and treatment methods. It requires someone who understands mathematics and isn't afraid to question conventional wisdom." He looked at her. "I saw you at the Pemberton benefit, explaining inverse square law. I watched you work through the calculation in your head, simplifying it for a girl who barely understood addition. You weren't showing off. You were teaching, and you were good at it. So you want me to solve London's water crisis?" Alara's voice came out skeptical. "I want you to help. I want you to have the resources and freedom to think, to create, to be useful in a way that matters." Adrian's expression was serious. "I have money, but limited technical expertise. You have brilliant mind, but limited resources. Together, we might actually accomplish something meaningful." Alara looked at the maps again. Her mind was already working, seeing patterns, identifying problems. "The main issue is contamination at the source," she murmured, tracing a line with her finger. "If you could separate the intake from the outflow, create a system of treatment before distribution." "Exactly. But the current proposals all try to treat the water after it's already contaminated. What if we prevented the contamination in the first place?" They spent the next 3 hours bent over the maps, talking, debating, sketching ideas. Alara forgot to be nervous, forgot to make herself small. She was too busy being brilliant. That evening, Adrian showed her to her rooms. They were beautiful. A bedroom, a sitting room, even a small study. "This is too much," Alara said. "This is what you deserve." Adrian paused in the doorway. "Miss Vance," "Alara, I want you to understand something. You're not here as a charity case. You're here as a colleague, an equal. Your ideas matter, your mind matters. And no one in this house will ever make you feel otherwise." "What if I fail? What if I'm not as smart as you think?" "Then you'll try again. That's how innovation works." He smiled slightly. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we have meetings with the City Water Commission. They're all idiots, but try to be diplomatic." He left, closing the door softly. Alara stood in the middle of her new room and felt something crack open inside her chest. For the first time in 6 years, she felt safe. For the first time in her life, she felt valued, and it was terrifying because now she had something to lose. But maybe, just maybe, that was worth the risk. She walked to the window and looked out over the park, at the city beyond, at the sprawling, messy, beautiful problem of London. Somewhere out there, Richard Vance was planning his next move. Somewhere out there, threats were gathering. But here, in this room, in this house, Alara Vance was finally free to think. And that changed everything. The Water Commission meeting was a disaster from the start. Alara sat in the back of the stuffy government office, trying to make herself invisible out of habit. Adrian stood at the front, presenting their proposal to a panel of 5 men who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. As you can see from these calculations, Adrian was saying, pointing to the diagrams Alara had drawn up, if we reroute the intake system upstream and implement a filtration process before distribution. Your Grace, with all due respect, Commissioner Hartley interrupted, not sounding respectful at all. We've had engineers working on this problem for years. I hardly think your engineers are wrong, Alara said. Every head in the room turned to her. Adrian's eyes held a warning. They'd agreed she would observe today, nothing more. But she couldn't help it. Hartley's proposal, the one he'd been droning about for 20 minutes before Adrian's presentation, was fundamentally flawed. I beg your pardon? Hartley's face reddened. Your plan. Alara stood, her notes clutched in her hand. You're proposing to increase pressure in the existing pipes to force faster flow, but you haven't accounted for the structural integrity of pipes that are already corroded. You'll cause ruptures within a month. And you are? Miss Alara Vance. I'm working with His Grace on alternative solutions. Hartley's expression shifted from outrage to condescension. I see. And what exactly are your qualifications, Miss Vance? I can do mathematics. Apparently that puts me ahead of your engineering team. One of the other commissioners actually laughed before covering it with a cough. Hartley stood. Your Grace, I don't appreciate being ambushed with your associate. This is serious government business, not a parlor game for bored aristocrats and their companions. The emphasis on companions was deliberate, insulting. Adrian's jaw tightened. Commissioner, no, it's fine. Alara walked to the front of the room, her heart pounding but her voice steady. You want qualifications? Here. She grabbed chalk and started writing on the board. Your current system operates at an average pressure of 40 pounds per square inch. Your pipes, most of which date from 1802, were designed for maximum pressure of 35. You're already operating over capacity. She wrote faster, numbers flowing. Your proposal increases pressure to 60 psi. At that pressure, given the corrosion rate of iron pipe exposed to Thames water for 40 years, you have a 93% probability of catastrophic failure within 6 weeks. The ruptures will occur primarily at junction points where stress is highest, flooding lower-income neighborhoods first, because that's where the oldest infrastructure is. The room was silent. Your plan, Alara continued, turning to face them, will kill people. Poor people mostly, so maybe you don't care. But it will also cost the city approximately £200,000 in emergency repairs and reconstruction. So even if you don't value human life, you might want to consider the financial implications. Hartley's face had gone from red to purple. How dare you? The calculations are on the board. Check them yourself. Alara set down the chalk. Or don't. But if you implement this plan, what happens next is on you. She walked back to her seat, her hand shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Adrian was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Gentlemen, he said quietly, I think we should reconvene after you've had time to review Miss Vance's analysis. Shall we say next week? Hartley was already gathering his papers. There's nothing to review. Your Grace, I don't know what game you're playing, but this commission will not be dictated to by, he gestured at Alara. By this. By a woman who's smarter than you? Adrian's voice was mild, but his eyes were cold. Yes, I can see how that would be threatening. I'll be speaking to the Lord Chancellor about this. Hartley stormed out. The other commissioners followed, muttering. When the door closed, Adrian turned to Alara. That was stupid, I know. I'm sorry. You said to be diplomatic and I just… Brilliant. Adrian was smiling. Actually, smiling. That was absolutely brilliant. I got us thrown out. You proved Hartley wrong in front of his peers with math he can't dispute. That's worth more than any diplomatic nicety. Adrian walked over to the board, studying her calculations. This is remarkable work. How long did it take you to work this out? 2 days. I couldn't sleep, so I kept running numbers. Alara rubbed her eyes. But I've ruined everything, haven't I? They'll never work with us now. They'll have to. You're right, and Hartley knows it. He's just angry that you exposed him. Adrian glanced at her. But you need to be prepared. This won't be the last time someone tries to dismiss you because of your gender. It's going to get worse before it gets better. I can handle it. I know you can. The question is whether you should have to. They gathered their materials in silence. Outside, the afternoon had turned gray and cold, threatening rain. There's something else, Adrian said as they climbed into the carriage. I've been invited to the Devonshire ball next week. It's expected that I attend. And, he paused, it would be helpful if you came as well. Show society that you're not just my employee, but a respected colleague. Alara's stomach dropped. You want me to go to a ball? After what happened at the Ashworth party. I know, but hiding won't help. You need to be seen. Need to establish yourself as someone legitimate, not just a scandal. Adrian's expression was serious. I won't force you, but I think it's important. Richard will be there. Yes. Which is exactly why you should be there too. Show him you're not afraid. But she was afraid. Terrified, actually. Still, she heard herself saying, All right, I'll go. The next morning, a letter arrived. Alara was in the library, working through pressure calculations, when Crawford brought it in on a silver tray. This was delivered by messenger, miss. No return address. The paper was expensive. The handwriting was Richard's. Alara's hands shook as she opened it. Dearest stepdaughter, I trust you are enjoying your new position. How fortunate that you found such a generous patron. I do hope the Duke understands the kind of family he's invited into his home. Speaking of family, I've been thinking about your dear mother lately. Such a tragic accident. The magistrate was very understanding when I explained about her melancholy, her struggles with laudanum. Of course, there were some who wondered if perhaps it was intentional, if she might have taken her own life. I would hate for such rumors to resurface. The scandal would be devastating, not just to her memory, but to anyone associated with her. Employers, for instance, might reconsider their association with the daughter of a suicide. I'm sure we can come to an understanding. I'll be at the Devonshire ball. We should talk. Your devoted stepfather, Richard Vance. Alara read it 3 times, feeling ice spread through her chest. He was threatening her mother's memory, and threatening Adrian's reputation by association. Miss Vance? Are you all right? She looked up to find Crawford watching her with concern. I'm fine. Thank you. She folded the letter carefully. Is His Grace available? In his study, miss. Adrian looked up when she entered, then immediately stood. What's wrong? Alara handed him the letter. She watched his face as he read, watched his expression darken. This is blackmail, he said flatly. Yes. Your mother didn't kill herself. No, she fell down the stairs during an argument with Richard. Martha, the housemaid, heard it, but Richard paid off the magistrate and spread the suicide story to explain the laudanum he planted afterward. Adrian set down the letter like it might catch fire. Can Martha testify? She's terrified. And even if she testified, who would believe a housemaid over Richard? Alara's voice was bitter. He's good at this. He knows exactly how to destroy people without leaving evidence. What does he want? Control. He wants me to know he can ruin me, and you, whenever he chooses. Alara sank into a chair. Maybe I should leave. Go somewhere else. If I'm not associated with you, he can't threaten your reputation. Absolutely not. Adrian's voice was sharp. You're not going anywhere. We'll figure this out. How? He holds all the power. Well, no, he doesn't. He holds a threat. That's different. Adrian paced, thinking. Blackmail only works if the victim is afraid of exposure. What if we remove that fear? I don't understand. What if we tell the truth first about your mother, about Richard's abuse, about everything? Adrian stopped pacing. Take away his weapon before he can use it. Alara stared at him. If I tell people my mother was murdered and Richard covered it up, they'll think I'm insane or vindictive. Either way, it destroys my credibility. Not if we do it right. Not if we have evidence. What evidence? It's been 6 years. Martha's testimony is a start, and we can investigate. My solicitor is very good at uncovering financial irregularities. If Richard paid off the magistrate, there will be records, money trails. Adrian's eyes were intense. But you need to be sure about this. Once we start, there's no going back. It will get ugly. Alara thought about her mother, about falling downstairs, about a man who sold his stepdaughter as a joke and thought he'd gotten away with murder. I'm sure, she said. The investigation started quietly. Adrian's solicitor Pemberton began digging into Richard's finances. Alara wrote to Martha, asking her to document everything she remembered about that night. Meanwhile, the work continued. Alara spent her days buried in calculations and diagrams, redesigning London's water system from the ground up. At night, she had nightmares about her mother's death, about Richard's face, about everything falling apart. You need to sleep, Adrian told her one evening, finding her in the library at 2 a.m. Can't. I keep thinking about the filtration system. If we use sand and gravel in layers with charcoal for absorption. Alara, he sat down across from her. You're exhausted. I'm fine. You're not. You haven't been fine since that letter arrived. His voice was gentle. Talk to me. What's there to say? My stepfather murdered my mother and got away with it. Now he's threatening to destroy my reputation and yours unless I... What? Go back to being his prisoner? Let him control me forever? Alara's voice cracked. I thought I escaped. I thought I was free. But he's still there, still pulling the strings. Hey! Adrian reached across the table, covering her hand with his. You are free. He doesn't control you anymore. Then why am I so scared? Because you're human. Because he hurt you. Because trauma doesn't just disappear because you change locations. Adrian's hand was warm on hers. But you're not alone anymore. You have resources now. You have people who believe you. I have you, Alara said quietly. Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Yes, you have me. They sat like that for a long moment, hands touching, something unspoken hanging in the air between them. Then Adrian cleared his throat and pulled back. Come on, I'll walk you to your room. You need rest. I need to finish these calculations. The calculations will wait. You won't be useful to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. He was right, though she hated admitting it. Alara gathered her papers and let him escort her upstairs. At her door, she paused. Adrian, thank you for believing me. Always, he said, and something in his voice made her heart beat faster. The Devonshire Ball was everything Alara remembered hating about society events. Too many people in too small a space, all of them talking too loud about things that didn't matter. But this time, she wasn't alone. Adrian stayed close as they entered, his presence a steadying force. People stared, of course they stared, but there was curiosity now instead of just dismissal. Your Grace, how wonderful to see you! Lady Devonshire swept over, all smiles. And Miss Vance, what a lovely surprise! Lady Devonshire, Alara curtsied, trying not to feel like an imposter in her borrowed gown. I heard the most fascinating rumor about you, my dear. Something about you working with the Water Commission? Surely that can't be true. It's entirely true, Adrian said smoothly. Miss Vance is an exceptional engineer. Her work will save lives. How progressive. Lady Devonshire's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Do enjoy the evening. She drifted away, already whispering to her friends. That went well, Alara muttered. Give it time. They're curious. That's better than dismissive. Adrian glanced around the room. There's Commissioner Wainwright, the one from the water meeting who seemed reasonable. Let me introduce you properly. The next hour was a blur of introductions and careful conversations. Some people were genuinely interested in the water project. Others were clearly just gossiping about the scandalous girl living in the Duke's house. Alara was talking with an older gentleman about pressure systems when she saw him. Richard, across the room watching her, her breath caught. Adrian followed her gaze. Want to leave? No. Alara straightened her spine. I'm not running from him. That's my girl. Richard started walking toward them. Alara's hands clenched into fists. Your Grace. Richard's smile was all charm. Miss Vance, how lovely you look tonight. Mr. Vance. Adrian's voice was ice. I was hoping we might have a private word, Your Grace. About my stepdaughter's future. Miss Vance's future is her own concern. Of course. But surely you understand the delicacy of the situation. A young woman living unchaperoned in a bachelor's household. I have a chaperone, Alara interrupted. Mrs. Patterson lives in the house and is entirely respectable. Still, people do talk. And given your mother's history, Richard lowered his voice. I would hate for old scandals to resurface. There it was, the threat, delivered with a smile. Actually, Adrian said, we were planning to address that very topic, publicly. Richard's smile froze. I'm sorry? The circumstances of Mrs. Vance's death. We've been investigating. Interesting what one finds when one actually looks. Adrian's voice was pleasant, but his eyes were hard. For instance, the magistrate who ruled it a tragic accident received a rather large donation to his favorite charity the week afterward. From you. I was grieving. I wanted to honor my wife. You wanted to cover up a murder. Alara's voice was steady, loud enough that people nearby turned to look. My mother didn't kill herself. She was arguing with you. Martha heard it. You pushed her down the stairs, then planted laudanum to make it look like suicide. The color drained from Richard's face. You're mad. Grief has made you. We have a witness. We have financial records. We have enough to reopen the investigation. Adrian stepped closer to Richard. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop threatening Miss Vance. You're going to return the money you stole from her mother's estate. And you're going to stay far away from both of us. Or we go to the magistrate. Tonight. People were definitely watching now, whispers spreading through the crowd like fire. Richard looked at Alara, and for the first time she saw fear in his eyes. You stupid girl, he hissed. You have no idea what you've done. You think you've won? You've just declared war. Good, Alara said. I'm ready. Richard turned and walked away, shoving through the crowd. Alara started shaking. Adrian steadied her with a hand on her elbow. Well, he said quietly, that's done. Everyone's staring. Let them. They needed to know the truth anyway. Lady Devonshire appeared at Alara's side, her expression impossible to read. Miss Vance, that was quite an accusation. It wasn't an accusation. It was the truth. I see. Lady Devonshire studied her for a long moment. Your mother was a friend of mine, you know. I never believed the suicide story. It didn't fit her character. She paused. If you need testimony to that effect, I'm happy to provide it. Alara felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. Other people were approaching now. Some looked skeptical, but others looked sympathetic, believing. Is it true your mother was murdered? Someone asked. Yes. And Vance covered it up? Yes. Then you're very brave to speak up, the woman said softly. My sister died in suspicious circumstances. Her husband remarried within a month. I've always wondered. More voices joined in. Stories of women who died conveniently, of husbands and guardians who benefited from those deaths, of questions that were never asked because asking them would be improper. Alara listened, horrified and strangely comforted. She wasn't alone. Her mother's story wasn't unique, and maybe, just maybe, telling the truth would help more people than just herself. They left the ball an hour later, emotionally exhausted. In the carriage, Adrian said, You did well tonight. I'm terrified, Alara admitted. Richard's not going to let this go. He'll come after both of us now. I know, but at least the fight is out in the open now. No more hiding, no more threats whispered in shadows. Adrian looked at her. I meant what I said. I'm with you in this. Whatever comes next. Why? The question burst out of her. You could have just given me the money and been done with it. Why are you fighting my battles? Adrian was quiet for a moment. Do you remember what I said at the Ashworth party about watching you make yourself small for 3 years? Yes. What I didn't say was why I noticed, why I remembered. He met her eyes. You were the first person I'd met in years who seemed genuinely interested in ideas rather than status, who cared about solving problems rather than climbing social ladders. You were brilliant and kind and so obviously trapped, and He stopped. I wanted to help. I wanted to see what you could become if someone gave you the chance. And now? Now I know. You're remarkable, Ilara. You're everything I thought you could be and more. His voice dropped. And somewhere along the way, this stopped being about helping you escape. It became about not wanting to imagine a life where you're not in it. Ilara's heart was pounding. Adrian, I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I just needed you to know. Whatever happens next, whatever Richard does, whatever society says, you matter to me. Not as an employee, not as a project, as you. The carriage stopped in front of Thornwood House. Ilara should have gotten out, should have said goodnight, should have maintained the professional distance they'd carefully constructed. Instead, she leaned forward and kissed him. It was brief, impulsive, terrifying. When she pulled back, Adrian was staring at her with wide eyes. I'm sorry, Ilara whispered. I shouldn't have. Don't apologize. His voice was rough. Just, are you sure? Because once we cross this line, I'm sure. He kissed her this time, deeper, one hand cupping her face. Ilara melted into it, into him, into the first moment of genuine connection she'd felt in years. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. This complicates things, he said. I know. People will say I took advantage of you, that this was my plan all along. Let them say it. I don't care. Ilara pulled back to look at him. I've spent my whole life being afraid of what people think. I'm done with that. I want this. I want you. Adrian smiled, a real smile, bright and genuine. Good, because I want you too. Have for 3 years, if I'm being honest. They sat there in the carriage, holding each other, while outside the house waited, and somewhere in London, Richard Vance plotted his revenge. But for this one moment, Ilara let herself be happy. She'd spent so long surviving that she'd forgotten what living felt like. Now she remembered, and she wasn't giving it up without a fight. The next morning, everything changed. Ilara was eating breakfast when Crawford brought in the newspapers. Miss Vance, you should see this. The headline made her blood run cold. Duke's mistress makes wild accusations. Disgraced girl. Claims. Stepfather. Murdered mother. The article was vicious. It painted her as a social climber who'd seduced Adrian and was now making desperate accusations to secure her position. It questioned her sanity. It implied Richard was the real victim, a grieving widower being persecuted by an ungrateful stepdaughter. There are 3 other papers with similar stories, Crawford said quietly. Mr. Vance has been busy. Adrian strode in, his own copy of the paper in hand. Don't read them. Too late. Ilara's hands were shaking. He's destroying me. He's trying to. There's a difference. Adrian sat down across from her. Pemberton sent word this morning. He's found the financial records linking Richard to the magistrate. We have proof of the bribe. It won't matter. No one will believe me now. Ilara, they're calling me your mistress, Adrian. They're saying I'm insane. They're saying... Her voice broke. They're saying my mother was weak and unstable, and I'm just like her. Adrian reached across the table, gripping her hands. Listen to me. This is Richard's last stand. He's desperate, throwing everything he has at you because he knows we're close to exposing him. If we back down now, he wins. And if we keep fighting, what then? Your reputation gets destroyed along with mine? I don't care about my reputation. Well, I care about it. Ilara pulled her hands away. You've been nothing but kind to me. You don't deserve this. What I deserve is a say in this decision, and I say we fight. Adrian's voice was firm. We have evidence. We have witnesses. We have the truth. That's more powerful than whatever lies Richard prints in the papers. Is it? Because right now it feels like the lies are winning. Before Adrian could respond, Crawford appeared again. Your Grace, there are reporters at the gate, and... He hesitated. Commissioner Hartley is here to see you. He says it's urgent. Adrian and Ilara exchanged glances. Hartley was shown into the breakfast room, looking grimmer than usual. Your Grace, Miss Vance. He didn't sit. I'm here to inform you that the Water Commission has voted to reject your proposal. Furthermore, we're suspending our working relationship pending an investigation into Miss Vance's fitness to work on government projects. On what grounds? Adrian's voice was dangerous. The newspapers this morning raised serious questions about Miss Vance's mental stability and moral character. We cannot be associated with such scandal. The newspapers are full of lies planted by a man trying to cover up a murder, Alara said. You're really going to let him win because he's better at manipulating the press? I'm going to protect the commission's reputation. I'm sorry, Miss Vance, but until these matters are resolved, you're no longer welcome in our offices. Hartley turned to Adrian. Your Grace, I strongly suggest you reconsider your association with this young woman, for both your sakes. Get out, Adrian said quietly. I beg your pardon? Get out of my house, now! Hartley left, spine rigid with offense. When the door closed, Alara stood. He's right. I should go. Distance yourself from me before this gets worse. Stop. Adrian stood too. Stop trying to protect me. Stop trying to make yourself disappear. That's what Richard wants, for you to run, to hide, to prove you're weak. I am weak. Look at what's happening. You're the strongest person I know. Adrian grabbed her shoulders, making her look at him. You survived 6 years with Richard Vance. You stood up to the Water Commission. You told the truth at that ball knowing exactly what it would cost you. That's not weakness, Alara. That's courage. Tears were streaming down her face now. I don't feel courageous. I feel terrified. Good. Be terrified. But don't run. His eyes were intense. Stay. Fight. Show Richard and everyone else that you're not the scared girl they think you are. Alara wanted to believe him, wanted to be that strong. But the newspapers were calling her a liar and a madwoman. The Water Commission had turned against her. Society thought she was Adrian's mistress. And Richard was winning. I need time to think, she said finally. Take all the time you need. But know this, whatever you decide, I'm not giving up on you. Or this investigation. Richard Vance will answer for what he did. Alara nodded and fled to her room. She spent the rest of the day staring at her mother's letters, trying to find strength in words written years ago. Be brave, my darling girl. The world will try to make you small. Don't let it. But how could she be brave when everything was falling apart? The answer came that evening, delivered by Crawford. Miss Vance, Martha, your former housemaid, is here to see you. She says it's urgent. Martha looked terrified, her coat soaked from the rain. Miss, I'm so sorry to come here, but I didn't know where else to go. Mr. Vance, he found out I wrote to you. He fired me, said if I testify against him, he'll make sure I never work again. Martha's voice shook. But I have something he doesn't know I kept. She pulled a small bottle from her pocket. The label was faded but readable. Laudanum. This is the bottle Mr. Vance planted after your mother died. I found it in his room when I was cleaning the next day. I knew it was wrong, keeping it, but something told me I should. Martha pressed it into Alara's hands. His fingerprints are on it. Not your mother's. Never your mother's. Alara stared at the bottle. Evidence. Real, physical evidence. Martha, this changes everything. I know, that's why I had to bring it, even though I'm scared. Martha's eyes filled with tears. Your mother was kind to me. She didn't deserve what he did. And neither do you. Alara hugged her hard. Thank you. Thank you so much. When Martha left, with a promise of employment in the Thornwood household, Alara took the bottle straight to Adrian. He was in his study, surrounded by papers, looking exhausted. Adrian! He looked up, saw the bottle. His eyes widened. Is that the laudanum Richard planted? With his fingerprints. Alara set it on his desk. We have him. Adrian stood, staring at the bottle like it might vanish. This is enough. This is enough to reopen the case, to force an investigation, to destroy him, Alara finished. The way he tried to destroy me. They looked at each other. Are you sure? Adrian asked quietly. Once we do this, there's no going back. It will be ugly, public. You'll have to testify, relive everything. I'm sure. And she was. Finally, completely sure. He killed my mother. He's been terrorizing me for 6 years, and he tried to ruin you just because you helped me. Alara's voice was steady. I'm done being afraid of him. I'm done hiding. It's time he faced what he did. Adrian smiled, fierce and proud. Then let's go to war. He pulled her into his arms, and Alara let herself lean into his strength for just a moment. Tomorrow, they would take the evidence to the magistrate. Tomorrow, they would start the process of exposing Richard's crimes. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. But tonight, in Adrian's study with rain pattering against the windows, Alara felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the fragile, desperate kind, the strong kind. The kind built on evidence and truth and people who believed in her. Richard thought he'd won by destroying her reputation, but he'd made a critical mistake. He'd taught her that she had nothing left to lose. And a woman with nothing to lose was the most dangerous thing in the world. And a woman with nothing to lose was the most dangerous thing in the world. They went to the magistrate the next morning, armed with evidence and fury. Magistrate Colborne was the same man who'd ruled her mother's death in accident 6 years ago. He sat behind his massive desk, older now, grayer, but with the same carefully neutral expression. "Your Grace, Miss Vance," he gestured to the chairs across from him. "I understand you wish to discuss a closed case." "We wish to reopen it," Adrian said. "New evidence has come to light regarding the death of Mrs. Eleanor Vance." Colborne's expression didn't change. "That case was thoroughly investigated. The ruling was accidental death." "The ruling was bought," Alara said flatly. She placed the laudanum bottle on his desk. "This bottle was planted at the scene by Richard Vance. It has his fingerprints, not my mother's. We also have testimony from a household servant who heard the argument before my mother fell, and financial records showing you received a substantial donation the week you closed the investigation." The color drained from Colborne's face. "These are serious accusations. They're facts." Adrian leaned forward. "Richard Vance murdered his wife and paid you to cover it up. The evidence is irrefutable. The question is what you're going to do about it now." Colborne stared at the bottle like it was a snake. I don't—" He stood abruptly. "You need to leave, both of you." "We're not leaving until you agree to reopen the case," Alara said. "I can't do that. The scandal alone? The scandal of a covered-up murder? Or the scandal of a corrupt magistrate?" Adrian's voice was ice. "Because both will come out. The only question is whether you're part of the solution or part of the crime." Colborne sank back into his chair. He looked 20 years older suddenly. "If I reopen this case, my career is finished. My reputation—" "Your reputation is already finished," Alara interrupted. "You took a bribe to let a murderer go free. The only way you salvage anything is by doing the right thing now." The silence stretched out. Finally, Colborne said, "I'll need to review the evidence. Consult with the Lord Chancellor. This can't be rushed." "You have 1 week," Adrian said. "Then we take this evidence public ourselves. Your choice." They left him sitting there, staring at the laudanum bottle like it held his entire future. Outside, Alara's hands were shaking again. "Do you think he'll do it?" "He'll try to make it disappear, cover it up again." Adrian helped her into the carriage. "Which is why we're not waiting for him." "What do you mean?" "I mean we go public now, today. Force Colborne's hand before he can bury this." Alara's heart raced. "How?" Adrian's smile was sharp. "The same way Richard tried to destroy you. The papers." They spent the afternoon with 3 different journalists, telling the story with evidence spread across tables. The laudanum bottle. Martha's sworn testimony. The financial records showing Colborne's bribe. Pemberton had done his work well. Every piece was documented, verified, irrefutable. "This is explosive," said Thomas Wright from the London Observer, studying the papers. "If we print this, Vance will come after us with everything he has." "Let him," Alara said. "Print the truth. Let people decide for themselves." Wright looked at her for a long moment. "You understand what this will do to you? Your name will be in every paper in London. Every detail of your mother's death, your relationship with His Grace, everything will be examined and judged." "I know." "And you're willing to endure that?" "I'm willing to endure anything if it means Richard Vance faces justice for what he did." Wright nodded slowly. "All right. We'll run it tomorrow morning, front page." They visited 2 more papers with similar results. By evening, 3 major newspapers had committed to running the story. "It's done," Adrian said as they rode home. Tomorrow, everyone will know the truth. Alara should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt hollow. What if it's not enough? What if people still don't believe me? Then we keep fighting. But Alara, you've done everything right. You've told the truth, provided evidence, stood up when everyone said you should sit down. Whatever happens next, you should be proud. She wanted to believe him, but pride felt very far away. At Thornwood House, Crawford met them at the door with an urgent expression. Your Grace, Miss Vance, there's been a development. Lord Chancellor Weston is in the drawing room. He arrived an hour ago and insists on speaking with you both immediately. Adrian and Alara exchanged glances. Lord Chancellor Weston was one of the most powerful men in England, responsible for the entire justice system. They found him standing by the window, a stern-faced man in his 60s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Your Grace, Miss Vance. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. I've just come from Magistrate Colborne's office. He's quite upset. Something about evidence of murder and accusations of corruption? It's all true, Alara said before Adrian could speak. My stepfather murdered my mother 6 years ago. Colborne took a bribe to rule it an accident. We have proof. Weston studied her. You're very bold to make such claims. I'm very tired of watching murderers walk free. A slight smile touched Weston's lips. I can see why Colborne is terrified of you. He turned to Adrian. May I see this evidence? They spent the next hour going through everything. The bottle, the testimony, the financial records. Weston listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. When they finished, he sat back. This is damning. If accurate, it represents one of the worst miscarriages of justice I've seen in my career. It's accurate, Adrian said. The problem, Weston continued, is that Colborne isn't the only one implicated. The original investigation was overseen by several officials, all of whom signed off on the findings. Reopening this case means admitting systematic failure at multiple levels of government. The scandal will be enormous. Good, Alara said. It should be. Weston looked at her with something like respect. You're not afraid of the consequences? I'm terrified, but I'm more afraid of letting him get away with it. Weston stood. Very well. I'm opening a formal inquiry into both the death of Eleanor Vance and Magistrate Colborne's handling of the case. Mr. Vance will be arrested for questioning tomorrow morning. Alara's breath caught. Arrested? The evidence is sufficient for charges of murder and conspiracy to obstruct justice. If he's convicted, he'll hang. Weston's voice was matter-of-fact. Is that what you want, Miss Vance? The question hung in the air. Did she want Richard dead? She thought about her mother falling down the stairs, about 6 years of abuse and control, about Richard selling her like livestock for a joke. I want justice, she said finally, whatever form that takes. Weston nodded. Then justice is what you'll have. Good evening. After he left, Alara collapsed into a chair, shaking. It's happening, she whispered. It's really happening. Adrian knelt beside her. Are you all right? I don't know. I thought I'd feel relieved, but I just feel... She pressed her hands to her face. Empty, scared. That's normal. You've been fighting for so long, and now that you're winning, your body doesn't know what to do. What if he runs? What if he disappears before they arrest him? He won't. His arrogance won't let him. He thinks he's untouchable. Adrian took her hands. Try to rest. Tomorrow is going to be difficult. But Alara couldn't rest. She paced her room all night, watching the sky slowly lighten, waiting for dawn. The newspapers hit the streets at 6 a.m. Duke accuses Vance of murder. Evidence surfaces in 6-year-old death magistrate's corruption exposed. The stories were detailed, damning, impossible to ignore. Within hours, all of London was talking about nothing else. Alara stayed inside, unable to face the stares and whispers, but reports filtered back through Crawford and the household staff. Crowds were gathering outside Richard's townhouse. The magistrate's office was in chaos. The Lord Chancellor had issued a formal statement confirming the inquiry, and Richard Vance had vanished. What do you mean, vanished? Adrian demanded when the constable arrived with the news. His staff say he left last night, Your Grace. Took a bag and his horse. No one knows where he went. Alara's stomach dropped. He ran? We've issued warrants. Every port is being watched. He won't get far, the constable assured them. But Alara knew better. Richard was clever. He'd been planning this, probably since the moment she'd confronted him at the ball. He's going to come after me, she said after the constable left. He knows I destroyed him. He'll want revenge before he runs. Then we'll be ready. Adrian was already moving, issuing orders to Crawford. Extra guards on the house. No one enters or leaves without verification. Alara doesn't go anywhere alone. I'm not hiding in this house like a prisoner. You're not hiding. You're being smart. Adrian gripped her shoulders. Richard is desperate now. Desperate men do desperate things. Please, just until they catch him. Alara wanted to argue, but she saw the fear in Adrian's eyes and realized this wasn't about control. It was about care. All right, she said, but not for long. I refuse to let him cage me again. The next 2 days were tense. The newspapers continued their coverage, with new details emerging daily. Public opinion was shifting, slowly but shifting. People who'd called Alara a liar were now questioning whether they'd been too quick to judge. Martha gave her testimony publicly, and other servants from Richard's household came forward with stories of his cruelty and violence. The case against him was building, even in his absence, but Richard himself remained missing. It's been 3 days, Alara said, staring out the library window at the guards patrolling the grounds. Where is he? Hiding, probably, trying to figure out his next move. Adrian looked up from the latest reports. The ports have all been alerted. He can't leave the country without being caught. Then what's he waiting for? They got their answer that night. Alara was in her room, preparing for bed, when she heard glass shatter downstairs. Shouting, running footsteps. She grabbed her robe and rushed to the door, yanking it open. Adrian was in the hallway, half-dressed, a pistol in his hand. Stay in your room. Lock the door. What's happening? Someone broke in through the kitchen. The guards are... An explosion rocked the house. The floor shook. Somewhere below, people were screaming. Fire! Crawford's voice echoed up the stairs. Fire in the east wing! Adrian shoved Alara back into her room. Stay here. I mean it. He ran toward the stairs. Alara stood frozen for exactly 3 seconds. Then she followed. Smoke was already filling the lower floors. She could see flames through the doorway to the east wing, spreading fast. Staff were running everywhere, grabbing water, trying to contain the blaze. Where's His Grace? Alara grabbed Crawford's arm. He went after the intruder, toward the study. Miss Vance, you shouldn't be down here. But Alara was already running. The study was in the west wing, away from the fire but filling with smoke. The door was open. Inside, Adrian stood facing Richard Vance. Richard had a pistol. It was pointed at Adrian's chest. Don't move, Richard said. His voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. Either of you. Alara froze in the doorway. Richard, shut up. He didn't even look at her, his eyes fixed on Adrian. You did this. You took her from me. You destroyed everything I built. You turned her into this ungrateful, disobedient... I showed her she had value, Adrian interrupted. Something you never did. Value? Richard laughed, sharp and bitter. She has no value. She's weak, pathetic, just like her mother. Do you know how easy it was? One push. That's all it took. One push, and Eleanor was gone, and everything she had became mine. Alara's vision blurred with rage. You bastard! There she is. There's the girl who thinks she's so clever. Richard finally looked at her. Did you really think you could destroy me? That you could expose me and walk away unscathed? I don't care about walking away unscathed. I care about justice. Justice. Richard spat the word. There is no justice, only power, and you have none. She has me, Adrian said. Richard's finger tightened on the trigger. Not for long. Wait! Alara stepped forward. You want revenge? Take it. Shoot me, not him. He didn't do anything except help me. This is between us. Alara, no, Adrian started. She's right, Richard said. This is between us. He turned the gun toward Alara. I should have done this years ago, saved myself a lot of trouble. Time seemed to slow. Alara saw Richard's finger on the trigger, saw Adrian start to move, saw the hatred in her stepfather's eyes. She thought about her mother, about falling, about 6 years of fear, and she refused to die afraid. "Do it," she said, her voice steady. "Pull the trigger. But know that it won't save you. The evidence is everywhere. The newspapers have it. The Lord Chancellor has it. Killing me just adds another murder to your list. I don't care. I'm already condemned." Richard's hand was shaking now. "But at least I'll have the satisfaction of watching you." Adrian lunged. The gun went off. Elara screamed. But it was Richard who fell, clutching his side. Adrian had tackled him, knocking the pistol away, and in the struggle Richard had shot himself. Blood spread across his shirt, dark and fast. "You," Richard gasped, staring up at them. "You think you've won. You think this is over." Adrian kicked the pistol away, kneeling beside Richard. "It is over. You're finished." "Not yet." Richard's smile was horrible, blood on his teeth. "There's one thing you don't know." He grabbed Adrian's arm, pulling him close, whispering something Elara couldn't hear. Adrian's face went white. "What?" Elara moved closer. "What did he say?" Richard laughed, a wet, gurgling sound. "Ask him. Ask your noble duke about the fire 6 years ago, about who really—" He choked, coughed blood, and went still. Elara stared at the body, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. Guards burst into the room, followed by Crawford and several footmen. "Your Grace! Miss Vance, are you hurt?" "We're fine." Adrian stood slowly, his face still ashen. "Vance is dead. Get the constable, and put out that fire before it spreads." People rushed to obey. In the chaos, Elara grabbed Adrian's arm. "What did he say to you?" "Nothing. Lies. He was trying to cause trouble even with his last breath." "Adrian, what did he say?" He looked at her, and something in his expression made her blood run cold. "Not here. Not now. Please." The constable arrived, then the magistrate, then what seemed like half of London's official apparatus, all demanding statements and examining the body and documenting everything. It was dawn before the house was finally quiet again. Elara found Adrian in the library, staring at nothing. "Tell me," she said. He didn't look at her. 6 years ago, there was a fire at the Vance townhouse, small one, contained to the study. Richard claimed it was an accident, but your mother's maid, a different one before Martha, died in it. Elara's heart started pounding. "I remember. Agnes. She was kind to me. Richard just told me—" Adrian's voice was strained. "He said my father started that fire, that my father was involved in your mother's death, that they were business partners in some kind of fraud, and when your mother found out, my father—" "No." Elara shook her head. "That's a lie. Richard was lying." "Was he?" Adrian finally looked at her. "Because Pemberton found something last week. Financial records connecting my father's estate to some of Richard's companies. Transactions around the time of your mother's death. I thought it was coincidence, but it was coincidence, or Richard forged them. He's a liar. I need to know the truth." Adrian stood. "I need to investigate. If my father was involved in any way, if I helped you bring down Richard while my own family was guilty, your father is dead. Richard is dead. Whatever happened between them doesn't change what we did." "Doesn't it?" Adrian's voice was anguished. "If my father helped murder your mother, how can you even look at me?" Elara grabbed his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. "Your father's sins are not yours. You didn't know. And even if it's true, even if he was involved, it doesn't change the fact that you saved me. You believed in me. You fought for me. But no." Her voice was firm. "Richard wanted to destroy us even in death. He planted that doubt to drive us apart. Don't let him win." Adrian pulled her close, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "I need to know," he whispered. "I need to know the truth about my father. Then we'll find it, together." They stood like that while outside the sun rose on a London that had changed overnight. Richard Vance was dead. The investigation was over. Justice, in some form, had been served. But the revelation about Adrian's father hung between them like a shadow. And in the distance, church bells began to toll, slow, solemn, marking the end of something, or maybe the beginning. Because the truth, Elara was learning, was never simple. Justice was never clean. And the hardest battles were the ones you fought with yourself, questioning everything you thought you knew. She pulled back to look at Adrian's face, seeing the doubt and pain there. "We'll figure this out," she said, but even as she said it, she wondered if some truths were better left buried, and if the cost of knowing everything might be higher than either of them could pay. Pemberton arrived at Thornwood House 3 days after Richard's death, with a leather case full of documents and an expression that promised nothing good. "Your Grace, Miss Vance, I've completed the investigation into the late Duke of Thornwood's business dealings with Richard Vance." He spread papers across the library table. "What I found is complicated." Alara's stomach tightened. She'd barely slept since Richard's final words, watching Adrian grow more withdrawn as he waited for answers. "Just tell us," Adrian said. His voice was flat, exhausted. Pemberton pointed to a series of ledgers. "Your father and Vance were indeed business partners. They invested in several manufacturing ventures together starting in 1868. The partnership was profitable until 1870, when your mother—" He nodded to Alara. "When Mrs. Vance discovered accounting irregularities." "What kind of irregularities?" Alara asked. "Fraud. They were inflating production numbers to attract investors, then pocketing the excess capital. Classic scheme. Mrs. Vance was reviewing the books for a charity benefit when she noticed the discrepancies. She confronted Vance about it." Alara's hands clenched into fists. "And then she died." "Yes. But here's where it gets complicated." Pemberton pulled out another document. 2 weeks before her death, Mrs. Vance wrote to the late Duke, Adrian's father. She detailed everything she'd found and demanded he end the partnership or she'd expose them both. Adrian went very still. What was his response? He agreed immediately, dissolved the partnership, returned the fraudulent funds, and threatened Vance with prosecution if he didn't do the same. Pemberton slid a letter across the table. "This is his reply to your mother, Miss Vance. He was horrified by what had been done and wanted to make it right." Alara picked up the letter with shaking hands. The handwriting was elegant, precise. "Dear Mrs. Vance, I am deeply ashamed of my involvement in these schemes. You are absolutely correct. The investors were defrauded, and I am as guilty as Mr. Vance. I have already begun returning funds and will continue until every penny is accounted for. I will also be severing all business ties with your husband immediately. I cannot undo what has been done, but I can ensure it never happens again. You have my word that I will cooperate fully with any investigation you deem necessary. My son will inherit many things from me. I pray this shame is not among them. With sincere regret, Thomas Hale, Duke of Thornwood." Alara looked up at Adrian. His face was unreadable. "So he tried to fix it," she said quietly. "He tried, but Vance refused to cooperate. According to these records, he threatened the Duke. Said if the fraud was exposed, he'd make sure the Duke went down harder than he would." Pemberton's expression was grim. The Duke was preparing to go to the authorities anyway when Mrs. Vance died. After that, he gestured helplessly. He withdrew from public life, died 2 years later. Some say it was his heart. Others say it was guilt. "The fire," Adrian said. "Richard mentioned a fire." "Yes, the Vance townhouse fire that killed the maid Agnes." Pemberton pulled out another file. "I found correspondence suggesting the Duke investigated that fire himself, believed Vance started it to destroy evidence, but he couldn't prove it, and with Mrs. Vance already dead, he gave up," Adrian finished. "Let Richard get away with it because he was too afraid of his own exposure." "Or too broken by what had happened," Pemberton said gently. "The letters suggest he blamed himself for Mrs. Vance's death. Thought if he'd never entered into business with Vance, she'd still be alive." The library was silent except for the ticking of the clock. Alara looked at the letter again, at the careful words of a man who'd made a terrible mistake and tried to fix it too late. "He was weak," she said finally, "but not evil. There's a difference." "Is there?" Adrian's voice was hollow. He knew what Vance was. He suspected murder, and he did nothing. He was scared and guilty, and probably destroyed by it. Alara touched his arm. "Your father made mistakes, bad ones, but Richard was the monster. Your father was just human." Adrian pulled away, walking to the window. My whole life I thought he was honorable, principled. That's what everyone said about him. And all this time, he was trying to be better. That counts for something. Does it? He turned to face her. Because right now it feels like everyone I trusted was lying. The words stung more than they should have. I never lied to you, Alara said quietly. I know, I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. Adrian ran his hands through his hair. I need time to process this. Take all the time you need. But Adrian, this doesn't change what we did. Richard is dead. The truth about my mother is out. We won. Did we? Because it feels like Richard got exactly what he wanted. Even dead, he's destroyed my faith in my own family. Before Alara could respond, Crawford appeared in the doorway. Your Grace, Miss Vance, there's a situation developing. You should see the newspapers. The headlines were brutal. Vance dead, but questions remain late. Duke's connection to fraud scheme exposed Thornwood family. Implicated in cover-up. Someone had leaked Pemberton's findings, or a twisted version of them. The articles painted Adrian's father as an accomplice to murder, suggested the whole investigation had been a cover-up to protect the Thornwood name, implied that Alara and Adrian were using Richard's death to bury the truth. Who did this? Adrian's voice was dangerous. Pemberton looked sick. I don't know. My office is secure. The only people who had access to these documents were... He stopped. Were who? Alara demanded. Magistrate Colborne, Lord Chancellor Weston, and Commissioner Hartley. Hartley. Adrian's jaw clenched. He's been trying to destroy the water project from the beginning. This is revenge. Or self-preservation, Pemberton said. If your father's fraud is connected to Colborne's corruption, it opens up new investigations. Hartley might be trying to muddy the waters before anyone looks too closely at the Commission's finances. Alara grabbed the newspapers, scanning the articles. They're calling for an inquiry into the Thornwood estate, suggesting we suppressed evidence. There's even speculation that we killed Richard to silence him. That's insane, Adrian said. It doesn't matter if it's insane. People are believing it. Alara threw the papers down. We need to respond immediately, before this narrative takes hold. How? What can we say that won't make it worse? The truth, all of it. Everything Pemberton found. We release it publicly. No redactions, no protecting your father's reputation, just the facts. Adrian stared at her. That will destroy my family's name. Your family's name is already being destroyed, with lies. At least this way it's destroyed with truth. Alara's voice was fierce. We've come this far by being honest. We don't stop now. Easy for you to say. It's not your father being exposed. The words hung in the air like poison. Alara stepped back as if she'd been slapped. You're right. My father left when I was 2. I have no idea what it's like to discover your parent was flawed. Except, wait, my mother was murdered by her husband and no one cared for 6 years. So maybe I know exactly what it's like to have your family destroyed. Adrian's face crumpled. Alara, I didn't mean... Yes, you did. And maybe you're right to be angry. But don't take it out on me. I'm trying to help. She walked out before he could respond, her eyes burning with tears she refused to shed. She made it to her room before the anger gave way to something worse. Not sadness, not fear, just bone-deep exhaustion. She'd fought so hard, survived Richard's abuse, exposed his crimes, nearly died in the process, and now everything was falling apart anyway because of secrets that had nothing to do with her. A knock on the door. Go away, she called. The door opened anyway. Adrian stood there, looking wrecked. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. No, I didn't. You're right about releasing the documents. All of them. He sat down heavily. I spent my whole life trying to live up to my father's legacy. And now I find out the legacy was built on fraud and cowardice. It's hard to accept. I know, but accepting it is the only way forward. Alara sat beside him. We can't control what our parents did. We can only control what we do now. And right now, we need to be braver than they were. Adrian looked at her with something like wonder. How are you so strong? I'm not strong. I'm just too stubborn to quit. She took his hand. We release everything. We let people judge for themselves. And we keep fighting for the water project, for the truth, for everything we've been working toward. Together. Together, he echoed. They sat in silence for a moment, hands clasped. Then Alara said, "There's something else we need to do." "What?" "The Pemberton Ball is in 3 days. Everyone who matters will be there. We need to go. Together, publicly. Show them we're not afraid." Adrian's eyes widened. "After Richard's death, after these accusations, they'll tear us apart." "Let them try. We'll have the truth on our side." Alara's smile was sharp. "And I'm done hiding." The next morning, they released everything to the newspapers. Every document Pemberton had found. Every letter. The full story of the fraud, Adrian's father's complicity and attempt at redemption, Richard's refusal to cooperate, the suspected cover-up of Eleanor Vance's murder. The reaction was explosive. Some papers defended the late Duke, called him a man who'd made mistakes but tried to fix them. Others condemned him as a criminal who'd escaped justice through death. Everyone had an opinion. But beneath the noise, something else was happening. People were starting to ask questions. Why had Magistrate Colborne been so quick to rule Eleanor's death an accident? Why hadn't there been a proper investigation into the fraud? Why was Commissioner Hartley so determined to discredit the Thornwood household? The focus was shifting, slowly, from scandal to systemic corruption. And in the middle of it all, Alara worked. She spent 18-hour days on the water project, refining calculations, preparing presentations, documenting everything so thoroughly that no one could question her expertise. "You should rest," Adrian told her on the second day. "I'll rest when we win." Alara didn't look up from her diagrams. "The commission meets next week. If we can present an undeniable solution, something so clearly superior to Hartley's plan that even he can't refute it, we'll shift the conversation. Make it about the work instead of the scandal." "That's ambitious." "I'm feeling ambitious." She finally looked at him. "I'm tired of defending myself. Time to make them come to me." Adrian smiled, a real smile for the first time in days. "I love it when you're ruthless." The Pemberton Ball arrived faster than Alara was ready for. She dressed carefully in a gown Adrian had commissioned, deep blue silk that made her feel like someone else, someone brave. "You look beautiful," Adrian said when she came downstairs. "I look terrified." "That too. But mostly beautiful." He offered his arm. "Ready?" "No, let's go anyway." The Pemberton mansion was ablaze with light and noise when they arrived. Alara felt every eye turned to them as they entered. The whispers started immediately. "That's her, the Vance girl. I heard she seduced the Duke. Murder and fraud, what a scandal!" Alara held her head high and let Adrian lead her into the ballroom. Lady Pemberton intercepted them immediately. "Your Grace, Miss Vance, how brave of you to attend." The word brave sounded like foolish. "We have nothing to hide," Alara said clearly. "Of course not, though some might say coming here so soon after Mr. Vance's death shows, shall we say, a lack of propriety. Some might say a lot of things. That doesn't make them true." Lady Pemberton's smile tightened. "Indeed. Do enjoy the evening." She swept away, already gossiping to her friends. "This was a mistake," Alara whispered. "Give it time," Adrian murmured back. But time seemed to make it worse. People avoided them. Conversations stopped when they approached. Even those who'd seemed sympathetic before now kept their distance, unwilling to be associated with scandal. Alara was ready to leave when she saw Commissioner Hartley across the room, surrounded by admirers. He met her eyes and smiled, smug, victorious. Something snapped inside her. "Excuse me," she told Adrian, and walked straight toward Hartley. "Miss Vance." Hartley's smile widened. "How unexpected to see you here." "Really, I thought you'd be expecting me, since you've been trying so hard to get my attention." The group around him tittered nervously. "I'm afraid I don't know what you mean." "Don't you? The leaked documents, the newspaper articles questioning the investigation, the sudden interest in my personal life." Alara's voice was loud enough to carry. "You've been trying to destroy my credibility since I proved your water plan was fatally flawed. I'm just curious, is it because I'm a woman or because I'm smarter than you?" The titters stopped. People were staring now. Hartley's face flushed red. "How dare you? No, how dare you? You're a public servant. Your job is to protect London's citizens, not your own ego. But instead of admitting your plan was wrong, instead of working with us to find a better solution, you've spent weeks trying to ruin me personally." She stepped closer. "Why? What are you so afraid of?" "I'm not afraid of anything." "Then prove it. The commission meets in 4 days. I'm presenting a revised water plan. If it's better than yours, and it is, will you support it? Or will you sacrifice public safety just to avoid admitting a woman was right?" Hartley's jaw worked. The room had gone silent, everyone watching. "This is hardly the place for such discussions." "Why not? You made it public. You dragged my name through the papers, questioned my sanity, implied I was corrupt. You wanted this to be about me personally, instead of about the work." Alara's voice rang out clearly. "So here I am, publicly. I'm asking you, in front of everyone here, will you put London's needs ahead of your pride?" Hartley looked around at the watching crowd. Trapped. "Of course I will," he said finally. "I've always prioritized the public good." "Excellent. Then I look forward to your support when I present on Tuesday." Alara smiled sweetly. "After all, a man of your integrity would never let personal feelings interfere with public safety, would he?" She didn't wait for an answer, just turned and walked back to Adrian, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. "That was—" Adrian stared at her. "That was incredible." "That was stupid. I just made an enemy for life. You just forced him into a corner where he has to support you or look like a corrupt coward in front of London's elite. That's not stupid. That's brilliant." Around them, the whispers had changed tone. People were looking at her differently, not with pity or contempt, but with something else. Respect. Maybe even awe. "Miss Vance?" A woman approached. Lady Ashworth, the hostess of the party where Richard had auctioned Alara off. "That was very well done. Hartley has needed someone to challenge him for years." "Thank you, Lady Ashworth. I wanted to apologize for what happened at my ball. I should have stopped it, should have defended you. I didn't, and I'm ashamed of that." Alara stared at her. Thank you. That means more than you know." Others were approaching now, offering support, congratulating her on standing up to Hartley, asking about the water project with genuine interest. The tide was turning, right here, right now, in this ballroom, because she'd stopped defending herself and started demanding accountability from others. "Dance with me," Adrian said quietly. "What?" "Dance with me. Show everyone here that you're not ashamed, that we're not hiding." He led her onto the floor as the music started. A waltz. Alara had barely danced in years, but Adrian was a good lead, and somehow her feet remembered. They swept across the floor, and Alara felt the weight of every eye on them. "They're all watching," she murmured. "Let them. They're going to talk anyway. Might as well give them something worth talking about." He spun her, and Alara laughed, surprised and genuine. When was the last time she'd laughed at a ball? When was the last time she'd felt anything but fear and shame in a room full of society's elite? "What are you thinking?" Adrian asked. "That 6 months ago I was being sold as a joke in a room like this, and now I'm dancing with a duke and forcing commissioners to answer to me. It's surreal. It's what you deserve, what you've always deserved." His eyes were warm. "A place where your voice matters, where you matter." The song ended. They stood together in the center of the floor, and for a moment the world narrowed to just the two of them. Then the applause started, scattered at first, then growing. People were clapping, for them, for her. Alara felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back. "Thank you," she whispered to Adrian. "For what?" "For seeing me, when no one else did." "Always," he said, and she knew he meant it. The commission meeting 4 days later was packed. Word had spread about Alara's challenge to Hartley, and half of London seemed determined to witness what happened next. Alara stood at the front of the room with her diagrams and models, her calculations checked and rechecked until they were irrefutable. Hartley sat in the front row, his expression carefully neutral. "Gentlemen," Alara began, "I'm here to present a solution to London's water crisis. Not a temporary fix, not a compromise. A real solution that will save lives and cost less than the current proposal." She spent the next hour walking them through every detail. The separated intake system that prevented contamination at the source. The filtration process using layered sand, gravel, and charcoal. The pressure calculations that proved her system could serve twice as many households as the current one while maintaining safety. She showed them the numbers, the engineering diagrams, the cost analysis. And when she finished, the room was silent. Then Commissioner Wainwright stood. "Miss Vance, this is remarkable. If this works, it will work," Elara interrupted. "I verified every calculation. The engineering is sound." "Commissioner Hartley?" Wainwright looked at him. "You're the senior engineer. What's your assessment?" Every eye turned to Hartley. He stood slowly, studying the diagrams. Elara held her breath. Hartley's voice was strained. "It's better than my plan, significantly better. The contamination prevention alone would save thousands of lives." He looked at Elara, and something in his expression had shifted. Not warmth exactly, but recognition. "Miss Vance, I owe you an apology. I let my pride interfere with my judgment. This is exceptional work." The room erupted. Commissioners arguing, debating, but the energy had shifted. They weren't questioning whether to implement Elara's plan. They were discussing how quickly they could start. Adrian caught her eye from the back of the room and smiled. They'd won. Actually won. The formal vote came a week later. Unanimous approval for Elara's water system. Full funding. Implementation to begin immediately. The newspapers that had called her a fraud now hailed her as a visionary. The society matrons who'd shunned her sent invitations. Even Lord Chancellor Weston issued a public statement praising her work. "How does it feel?" Adrian asked as they walked through the construction site where the first filtration system was being built. "Strange. Good. Terrifying." Elara watched workers laying foundation. 6 months ago, I was invisible. Now people want my opinion on everything. I don't know how to be this person. You've always been this person. People are just finally seeing it. Because you made them see it. No, you made them see it. I just gave you the space to show them. Adrian took her hand. Everything you've accomplished. That's you, Elara. Your mind, your courage, your refusal to give up. She leaned against him, watching her design become reality. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we change London, then maybe England, then maybe the world." Adrian's smile was bright. "Whatever you want, wherever your brilliance takes us." "Us?" "If you'll have me. Officially. Not as your employer, not as your benefactor, as your partner, in everything." Elara turned to face him. "Adrian Hale, are you proposing?" "I'm asking. There's a difference." His expression turned serious. "I know it's fast. I know we've been through hell. But I also know I don't want to imagine a future without you in it. So, Elara Vance, brilliant engineer, bravest person I know, will you marry me?" She should have hesitated, should have thought it through, should have considered the implications and the timing and everything that could go wrong. Instead, she said, yes. He kissed her there on the construction site, surrounded by mud and scaffolding and the sound of hammers building something new. And for the first time since her mother died, Elara felt like she was home, not in a place, in a person, in a partnership built on mutual respect and shared purpose, and the kind of love that made you braver instead of smaller. They pulled apart to find the construction workers watching, several of them grinning. "Congratulations, miss," one called out. "About time, your grace," another added. Elara laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. They had work to do, systems to build, a city to change. But right now, in this moment, she let herself just be happy. The girl who'd been sold as a joke had become the woman who'd saved London. And she was just getting started. The engagement announcement appeared in the London Observer 3 days later, alongside a detailed article about the water project's progress. Elara read it over breakfast, still surprised to see her name in print without accusations attached. "They're calling you the engineer duchess," Adrian said, reading over her shoulder. "I'm not a duchess yet. Give it 2 months. I've already spoken to the archbishop about a ceremony." Elara set down the paper. 2 months? That's fast. Too fast? Adrian's expression turned uncertain. "We can wait if you want. I just thought, after everything, Why delay? No, you're right. She gestured helplessly. I keep waiting for something to go wrong, for someone to take this away. No one's taking anything. You earned this. All of it. He kissed her forehead. Besides, I have selfish reasons. I want you to have legal protection. If anything happened to me as my wife, you'd inherit everything. The house, the resources, the ability to continue your work without anyone's permission. Alara hadn't thought about that. For 6 years, she'd owned nothing, had no legal rights, been completely dependent on Richard's whims. As a duchess, she'd have power, real power. You're thinking too practically about marriage, she said. I'm thinking strategically. Romance is wonderful, but security matters too. Adrian grinned. Though I'm also romantically interested in waking up next to you every morning for the rest of my life, if that helps. It helps. Crawford appeared with the Morning Post. Your Grace, Miss Vance, several invitations arrived, and he hesitated. A letter from Magistrate Colborne, marked urgent. Adrian took it, his expression darkening as he read. What is it? Alara asked. He wants to meet today. Says he has information about Richard's business dealings that we need to see before the final inquiry report is published. That sounds like a trap. Probably. But we should go anyway. Better to know what he's planning. Adrian looked at Crawford. Have the carriage ready in an hour. And send word to Pemberton. I want him there as well. Colborne's office was as grim as Alara remembered. The magistrate looked worse than the last time she'd seen him, thinner, older, with shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. Your Grace, Miss Vance, thank you for coming. He gestured to chairs. I'll be direct. The Lord Chancellor's inquiry has uncovered more than we initially realized. Richard Vance wasn't just a murderer and fraud. He was part of a network. What kind of network? Adrian asked. Colborne pulled out files, spreading them across his desk. Financial crimes, mostly. Bribery, extortion, false investments. Over the past decade, he used his social connections to run schemes across London. The fraud involving your father, Your Grace, was just one of many. Alara leaned forward, scanning the documents. Names jumped out at her, men she recognized from society events, commissioners, even a few members of Parliament. How deep does this go? She asked. Deep enough that exposing it all will cause a scandal of unprecedented proportions. Colborne's voice was heavy. The Lord Chancellor wants to contain it. Focus the inquiry on Vance and a few key conspirators. Let the rest quietly distance themselves. You mean let them get away with it? Alara said flatly. I mean prevent the collapse of several major institutions. Colborne met her eyes. Miss Vance, I understand your desire for justice. But if we expose everything, the financial damage alone could destabilize the entire city. Businesses will fail, families will be ruined, and many of those families are innocent, wives and children who had nothing to do with their husbands' and fathers' crimes. So we just... what? Pretend it didn't happen? We focus on the worst offenders, make examples of them, and give the others a chance to make restitution quietly. Colborne's hands were shaking slightly. I know this isn't perfect justice, but it's the best we can achieve without destroying everything. Adrian was studying the files. These men here, the ones marked in red, those are the ones you're planning to prosecute. Yes, 5 men besides Vance, all directly involved in the fraud and cover-up, including... Colborne paused. Including myself. Alara stared at him. What? I took bribes. I perverted justice. I helped a murderer go free. Colborne's voice was steady now, resigned. I'm submitting my resignation today. The inquiry will recommend criminal charges. I'll likely spend the rest of my life in prison. You could run, Adrian said. Like Vance tried to. I could, but I won't. Colborne looked at Alara. I failed your mother. I failed you. I can't undo that, but I can at least face the consequences honestly. Alara didn't know what to say. She'd spent months hating this man, wanting him to suffer. Now he was offering himself up for punishment, and all she felt was tired. What do you want from us? She asked finally. Your input on the inquiry's final recommendations. The Lord Chancellor values your opinion, Miss Vance. If you support the limited prosecution approach, he'll move forward with it. If you demand full exposure, Colborne shrugged. He'll consider it. Why would he care what I think? Because you're the hero of this story, the wronged daughter who exposed corruption and saved London's water supply. Your voice carries weight now. Colborne's smile was bitter. Use it wisely. They spent the rest of the day reviewing files with Pemberton, trying to understand the full scope of the conspiracy. This is insane, Alara said, reading about a scheme that had defrauded factory workers of their pension funds. These men destroyed lives for profit. And if we expose all of them, we'll destroy more lives in the process, Pemberton said quietly. The workers at these factories, if the businesses collapse, they lose their jobs. The investors who were already defrauded lose what little they have left. It's a mess with no clean solutions. So we let the powerful escape because the fallout would hurt the powerless? That's not justice. No, it's politics. Adrian rubbed his eyes, exhausted. And I hate it as much as you do. But Colborne has a point. We need to think about the consequences. Alara stood, pacing. My mother didn't get to think about consequences. She found fraud, she spoke up, and she was murdered for it. Now we're supposed to protect the same kind of men who killed her? Not protect them. Hold them accountable in a way that doesn't cause more harm. Adrian caught her hand, stopping her pacing. What do you want, Alara? Really want? She thought about it, about her mother, about Richard, about 6 years of powerlessness. I want them to pay, she said finally. But I also want the system to change. I want the next woman who finds fraud to be able to report it without being killed. I want justice that actually works, not just revenge. Then maybe that's what we focus on, Pemberton said. We prosecute the worst offenders. We use the rest of the evidence to push for reforms. Better oversight, stronger protections for whistleblowers, real consequences for corruption. That's not enough, Alara said. It's not, but it's more than we had before. And it's a foundation to build on. Adrian squeezed her hand. You changed the water system. Maybe you can change this too. Alara looked at the files spread across the table. Evidence of so much pain, so much greed. All right, she said. We do it the strategic way, but I want public accountability. Every name in these files needs to be released. Let them face social consequences even if they avoid legal ones. And I want the reforms pushed through immediately. No delays, no compromises. That's going to make enemies, Pemberton warned. Good. I'm tired of trying to make friends with people who enable corruption. Alara's voice was hard. They can hate me, as long as they know I'm watching. The inquiry's final report was released 2 weeks later. It detailed Richard Vance's crimes, the conspiracy that enabled them, and the systemic failures that allowed it all to happen. 5 men were arrested, including Magistrate Colborne. The rest were publicly named and shamed, their business dealings exposed, their reputations destroyed even without criminal charges. The social fallout was spectacular. 3 members of Parliament resigned. 2 major investment firms collapsed. Society divided sharply between those who thought the inquiry had gone too far and those who thought it hadn't gone far enough. And in the middle of it all, Alara worked on reforms. She testified before parliamentary committees about the need for financial oversight. She wrote detailed proposals for whistleblower protections. She used her new platform relentlessly, refusing to let the story fade. You're making enemies faster than I can track them, Adrian told her one evening. I know, but I'm also making allies. Alara showed him letters from other women who'd faced similar situations, from reformers who'd been fighting corruption for years, from ordinary citizens who were tired of watching the powerful escape consequences. Listen to this one, she said, reading aloud. Dear Miss Vance, my husband was defrauded by one of the men your inquiry exposed. We lost everything. I thought no one cared about families like ours. Thank you for proving me wrong. Adrian pulled her close. You're changing the world. I'm trying. It's harder than changing a water system. But more important, I don't know. Clean water saves lives too. She leaned against him. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing any good at all, or if I'm just angry and calling it justice. You're allowed to be angry, and you're allowed to use that anger to make things better. That's not revenge, Alara. That's purpose, it. The wedding was planned for the first week of summer, in the cathedral where Adrian's parents had married. Alara spent the weeks leading up to it in a strange daze, unable to quite believe this was her life now. The water system's first phase was complete, already showing reduced cholera cases in the neighborhoods it served. The parliamentary reforms were moving forward, slower than she wanted, but moving, and she was about to marry a man who believed in her completely. "How are you feeling?" Martha asked, helping her into the wedding gown. Martha worked at Thornwood House now, as Alara's personal attendant. It felt right having someone who'd known her mother nearby. Terrified, happy, confused why I'm not waking up from this dream. "It's not a dream, miss. It's what you deserve." Martha adjusted the veil. "Your mother would be so proud." Alara's eyes stung with tears. "I wish she could be here." "She is, in everything you've done, in the strength you showed, in the way you refused to let bad men win." Martha squeezed her hand. "She raised you to be brave, and you are." The ceremony was beautiful in a way that felt almost unreal. The cathedral packed with people, some genuinely happy for them, others clearly there just to witness the scandal up close. Alara walked down the aisle alone, having no one to give her away and refusing to pretend otherwise. Adrian stood at the altar, and the look on his face when he saw her made everything else fade away. The vows were traditional, but when it came time for the rings, Adrian surprised her with words of his own. "I promise to see you, always. Not as a project or a responsibility, but as yourself. I promise to support your work, your brilliance, your righteous anger at injustice. I promise to stand beside you, not in front of you, and to build a life where you never have to make yourself small again." Alara's voice shook when she replied, "I promise to trust you, even when fear tells me not to. I promise to keep fighting for what's right, even when it's hard. I promise to build something with you that lasts, not just love, but purpose, not just happiness, but meaning." They kissed to thunderous applause, and Alara thought about how far she'd come from that night at the Ashworth party, standing on a platform while men laughed at her. Now she was a duchess, an engineer, a reformer. But more than any title, she was herself, fully, completely, unapologetically. The reception was held at Thornwood House, and despite Alara's fears, it went surprisingly well. People congratulated her on the water project, asked about the reforms, treated her like someone who mattered. Lady Ashworth approached during the dancing. "Your Grace, I suppose I should call you that now. I wanted to tell you something." "Please don't apologize again," Alara said. "You already did, and I accepted." "Not an apology, a thank you." Lady Ashworth's expression was serious. "My niece was being courted by a man I suspected was after her money. After seeing how you handled Richard, I hired investigators. Turned out he was part of the same fraud network. He's one of the men your inquiry exposed. I'm glad I could help." "You did more than help. You showed women like me that we don't have to accept bad situations just because society says we should. That's worth more than you know." Others approached with similar stories throughout the night. Women who'd left bad marriages, men who'd reported corruption at their workplaces, people who'd found courage in Alara's example. "You started a movement," Adrian said as they danced together. "I started a conversation. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Because people are changing their behavior. That's more than just talk." Alara looked around the ballroom at all these people who 6 months ago wouldn't have given her the time of day. "It still feels surreal, like I'm waiting for someone to realize I don't belong here." "You belong here more than most of them. You earned your place, they just inherited theirs." Adrian spun her, grinning. "Besides, you're a duchess now. Technically, everyone here is beneath you socially, so if anyone doesn't belong, it's them." "That's not how it works." "Maybe it should be." The night wound down slowly. People left in carriages, still gossiping about the scandal and the romance and everything in between. Alara stood on the terrace, watching London spread out below her, thinking about everything that had happened. Adrian joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That 6 months ago I thought my life was over, and now—" She gestured at the city. "Now I'm looking at a place I helped change, at a future I actually want. It's a lot. Too much? No, just right, actually. She turned in his arms to face him. Thank you for everything, for seeing me, for believing in me, for... Stop thanking me. This wasn't charity. It was the best decision I ever made. Adrian's expression was soft. You changed my life too, you know. Made me stop hiding behind my title and actually do something meaningful. We changed each other. That's better. They kissed as the stars came out over London, and Alara felt something settle inside her. Peace, purpose, home, not in a place, in a person, in a partnership, in a life they'd built together from the wreckage of the old one. Well, the months that followed were busy. The water project expanded to new neighborhoods. The reforms passed through Parliament, establishing real oversight for financial crimes. Alara wrote papers on engineering that were published despite scandalized objections from men who thought women shouldn't work. And slowly, almost without noticing, she stopped waiting for disaster. One afternoon, almost a year after their wedding, Alara was in the library reviewing construction plans when Crawford announced visitors. Commissioner Wainwright and several members of the Royal Society, Your Grace. They say it's about a proposal. Alara exchanged glances with Adrian, who was working at his own desk. Send them in. Wainwright entered with 3 elderly men in formal robes. They looked uncomfortable but determined. Your Grace, thank you for seeing us. Wainwright cleared his throat. We've come with an unusual request. The Royal Society has been reviewing your work on the London water system, as well as your published papers on hydraulic engineering. The quality of your research and the practical application of your designs is, well, it's exceptional. Thank you, Alara said cautiously. One of the other men stepped forward. We'd like to offer you fellowship in the Royal Society. It would be the first time we've admitted a woman, but your work speaks for itself. You've advanced the field of civil engineering significantly. Alara's breath caught. The Royal Society was the most prestigious scientific organization in England. Membership meant recognition, legitimacy, access to resources and platforms she'd only dreamed of. There will be opposition, the man continued, significant opposition. Some of our members have already threatened to resign if we admit you, but we believe, enough of us believe, that merit should matter more than gender. We're also proposing policy changes, Wainwright added. Opening up civil engineering projects to competitive bid based solely on technical merit, not the bidder's social connections or gender. Your work proved that excluding half the population from these fields is not just unjust, it's stupid. We're losing brilliant minds because of archaic prejudices. Alara looked at Adrian, who was smiling. What do you think? She asked him. I think you don't need my permission, but if you want my opinion, take it, all of it. The fellowship, the recognition, the platform. Use it to open doors for other women. Show them what's possible. Alara turned back to the men. I accept, on one condition. What's that? Wainwright asked. The fellowship can't just be symbolic. I want active involvement in decisions, access to funding for my projects, and a voice in selecting future fellows. If I'm going to be the first woman, I need to make sure I'm not the last. The men exchanged glances. Done, Wainwright said, though you're going to make enemies. I'm getting used to that, Alara smiled. When do I start? The induction ceremony was held 3 months later in the Royal Society's Grand Hall. Alara stood before hundreds of scientists and engineers feeling both proud and terrified. The protests outside were loud. Men with signs decrying the degradation of scientific standards, women with signs celebrating this breakthrough. The divided response was almost funny in its predictability. Members of the Royal Society, the president began, we gather today to welcome a new fellow whose work has already transformed our understanding of urban infrastructure. Her designs have saved countless lives and set new standards for civil engineering. Please welcome Her Grace, Alara Hale, Duchess of Thornwood. The applause was mixed, enthusiastic from some, grudging from others, completely absent from a few who sat with crossed arms. Alara walked to the podium, her prepared speech forgotten. I'm not supposed to be here, she said simply. 6 months before I designed London's water system, I was being sold as a joke at a society party. Men were literally bidding on me like livestock, and the highest offer was meant as mockery. The room went silent. I tell you this not for sympathy, but as context. Because the same society that thought I was worthless also thinks most of you are wasting your time listening to me today. They'll say I got this fellowship through my husband's influence, that my work isn't really mine, that this is political correctness gone mad. Several members shifted uncomfortably. They're wrong. My designs work. My mathematics is sound. My engineering saves lives. That's not opinion, it's fact. Alara's voice rang out clearly. But here's what's also fact. I'm not unique. There are women all over this country with brilliant minds who are being ignored, dismissed, and wasted because we've decided that gender matters more than ability. She looked directly at the men with crossed arms. You can hate me being here. You can complain that standards are falling, but you can't argue with results. And my results speak for themselves. She paused. So, yes, I'm going to use this platform. I'm going to push for more women in science. I'm going to question every policy that excludes people based on anything except merit. And if that makes you uncomfortable, good. You should be uncomfortable. The system you're defending is indefensible. The silence held for a long moment. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then more, until half the room was applauding and the other half was just staring. Alara stepped down from the podium, her heart racing. Adrian was in the front row, beaming with pride. That was either brilliant or career suicide, she whispered to him. Probably both. But who cares? You told the truth. The backlash was immediate and intense. 3 fellows resigned in protest. Several universities issued statements condemning the society's decision. The newspapers had a field day, some praising the move as progressive, others attacking it as the end of scientific rigor. But underneath the noise, something else was happening. Women started writing to Alara. Hundreds of letters from girls interested in science, women working in fields where they were dismissed, mothers hoping their daughters could have better opportunities. Listen to this one, Alara told Adrian one evening, reading from the stack of correspondence. Dear Your Grace, I'm 15 years old and I love mathematics. My father says it's unseemly for girls, but after reading about you, I'm going to study anyway. If you can become a duchess and an engineer, maybe I can become a mathematician. That's what it's about, Adrian said quietly. Not the title or the recognition, the example. I know, it's just overwhelming sometimes. All these people looking to me for inspiration, and I'm still figuring things out myself. That's what makes you credible. You're not some untouchable genius. You're a real person who fought for every inch of progress. Adrian pulled her close. That's more inspiring than perfection ever could be. Alara leaned into him, grateful for his steadiness. 2 years after the wedding, the water system expansion was complete. Every neighborhood in London now had access to clean, filtered water. Cholera rates had dropped by 70%. Infant mortality was down. Life expectancy was climbing. The ceremony celebrating the project's completion was held at the main pumping station, with officials and dignitaries and half of London society in attendance. Alara stood before the crowd, looking at the massive machinery that turned her diagrams into reality. This project started because a woman noticed that people were dying of preventable disease, she said. Not because she was noble or special, but because she paid attention and refused to accept that death was inevitable. She gestured to the pumping station. This system works because science works, because engineering works, because when you focus on solving problems instead of protecting egos, you can accomplish remarkable things. Applause rippled through the crowd. But this isn't the end. It's the beginning. Alara's voice strengthened. Because now we know what's possible. We know that cities can be healthier, safer, better. We know that including diverse perspectives makes us stronger, not weaker. We know that challenging old assumptions leads to better solutions. She looked out at the crowd, at the women and men, the workers and aristocrats, the believers and skeptics. So let's keep going. Let's fix the systems that don't work. Let's build things that last. Let's create a world where brilliance is recognized regardless of who possesses it. She paused. Let's make it impossible for the next girl to be sold as a joke, because by the time she grows up, she'll be too valuable to ignore. The applause was thunderous this time, genuine and sustained. Adrian stepped up beside her, taking her hand as they cut the ribbon, officially opening the new system. Water rushed through the pipes, clean and clear and life-giving. Alara thought about her mother, who died fighting corruption, about Richard, who died trying to preserve it, about the journey from that auction to this moment. It hadn't been easy. It hadn't been clean. There were still enemies, still obstacles, still days when she wanted to quit. But she'd built something real, changed something fundamental, made a difference that would outlive her. That night, standing on the terrace at Thornwood House, Alara looked out at the city she'd helped transform. "Do you ever wish things had been different?" Adrian asked, joining her. "Easier? Sometimes. But then I wouldn't be here, wouldn't have done this work, wouldn't have found you." She took his hand. "I'd rather have the hard road that led somewhere meaningful than an easy road that went nowhere." "That's very philosophical." "I'm a duchess and a scientist. I'm allowed to be philosophical." She smiled. "Besides, someone needs to write the dramatic memoir about all this eventually. Might as well have good material." Adrian laughed, pulling her close. "I love you, your brilliance, your stubbornness, your complete inability to accept injustice. I love you too. Your kindness, your faith in me, your willingness to fight beside me instead of trying to fight for me." They stood together, watching the stars emerge over London, thinking about the future they were building. A future where women could be engineers, where brilliance mattered more than birth, where the girl being sold at auction could become the woman changing the world. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was theirs, built on truth and purpose and love that made them stronger together than they could ever be apart. And that, Alara thought, watching the city lights flicker to life, that was worth fighting for, worth surviving for, worth building a life around. She'd been sold for £5,000 as a joke. She'd bought her freedom with brilliance and courage. And now she was building an empire of change, one innovation at a time. Not bad for a girl everyone had dismissed as forgettable. Not bad at all.